Welcome to our Power series where we explain concepts in power engineering.
Let's jump right into this explainer. I've always walked past those humming steel giants at substations and thought, well, they're just completely static. But inside, there is this highly dynamic, beautifully engineered fluid system constantly at work, responding in real time to the invisible demands of our electrical grid. So today, we're going to break down exactly how this fascinating system operates, and the cinematic physics keeping these massive outdoor power transformers from failing under immense stress. And that brings us to a pretty serious question engineers have to tackle. How does a massive power transformer prevent itself from literally bursting under pressure? To answer that, we really need to understand the inherent danger of heating liquids inside a completely sealed steel container. When you run huge amounts of electrical energy through a closed system, you naturally generate an incredible amount of heat. If the fluids inside have nowhere to go when they heat up and expand, well, that internal pressure is eventually going to compromise the steel itself. So let's look inside the power transformer and explore the anatomy of a behemoth. If you could actually peek inside one of these, you'd find the magnetic core and this complex web of high and low voltage windings where the heavy lifting of voltage conversion actually happens. Surrounding that core is a very specific type of liquid, insulating mineral oil. It's a highly refined amber-colored fluid used inside transformers to provide crucial electrical insulation, and most importantly for our story today, cooling. At rest, under a light electrical load at around 25 degrees Celsius, this fluid is perfectly calm. It naturally fills the main tank, completely submerging those inner workings to protect them. Now, before our stress test begins, it really helps to understand the playing field here. Inside the main body, we've got the windings generating the power. Attached to the system is the Buchholz relay, serving as a vital protective device. You've also got the silica gel breather, which acts almost like the transformer's lungs. And finally, the absolute hero of our explainer today, the conservator tank, mounted right up at the top, high above the main tank.
Which brings us to heat and fluid expansion. The stress test begins.
Picture this. As the city wakes up and power demand surges, the electrical load on the system gradually increases. Because of what engineers call copper and core losses, which is basically just the unavoidable resistance and magnetic friction generated by electricity, the transformer starts generating continuous, intense heat. We can track this climbing steadily. We start at our perfectly calm 25-degree baseline, push up to 60 degrees as the morning load rises, and finally hit a blistering 95 degrees Celsius under heavy peak electrical load. And because of that intense heat, the insulating mineral oil doesn't just sit there. Governed by the strict laws of thermodynamics, it acts like a highly dynamic fluid. As the internal temperature climbs to that 95-degree mark, the oil literally expands in volume. The extra heat causes the overall oil level to slowly, steadily rise inside the main tank. We're talking about a massive amount of liquid swelling as the temperature goes up. Let's look at the conservator tank's role in managing that expansion. Because the main tank is already totally full, this expanding hot fluid desperately needs a safe escape route. At 95 degrees Celsius, which represents the absolute maximum stress our transformer is under, that extra volume of oil is actively pushed up through a connecting pipe into the conservator tank above. If you were standing right next to it, checking out the physical gauge on the side of that top tank, you'd actually see the needle moving upward in real time. The engineering guidelines hit the nail on the head here. They state that as transformer temperature increases, insulating mineral oil expands in volume, and the conservator tank safely accommodates the additional oil, preventing dangerous pressure buildup. So the crucial takeaway is that the conservator tank isn't just some random accessory up there. It is the ultimate safety net. It's an expansion chamber specifically designed to handle this massive volumetric expansion smoothly and safely. Now for cooling down and breathing, the contraction phase. Because, hey, what goes up must come down, right? So what exactly happens when the peak demand of the day finally passes and the electrical load drops? Well, as the intense internal heat generation slows down and the physical temperature gracefully falls from that 95-degree peak all the way back down to around 30 degrees Celsius, the volume of the mineral oil naturally decreases. The physics we just talked about simply reverse themselves, and this massive body of oil begins to contract. The fluid flows smoothly back down through the connecting pipe, retreating from the conservator and returning to the main tank in a continuous, gravity-fed flow. As the hot oil cools and shrinks, the extra volume drains right out of the top chamber. This causes the oil level indicator on the top tank to visibly drop back toward its normal resting position. But here's a totally fascinating engineering detail. As that oil level drops inside the conservator tank, it actually creates a void, a vacuum. To fill this void, atmospheric air is pulled into the tank. Now, outside air carries moisture, and moisture is the absolute enemy of insulating oil. That is exactly why the air is pulled in through a device called a silica gel breather. You've got these specialized particles in the breather stripping away every single drop of moisture, making sure that only perfectly dry air enters the conservator tank to replace the contracting oil. Pretty clever, right?
Finally, let's imagine a scenario without a conservator tank, the climax.
To really appreciate this elegant engineering, we have to look at a hypothetical. What if we just sealed the transformer completely tight without that top tank? Well, in a system with a conservator tank, the oil expands safely, pressure remains completely stable, and the grid runs smoothly. But without it, the story is very different. The heated oil expands, but it has literally nowhere to go. Internal pressure gauges would rapidly spike right into the red zone, and the immense hydraulic pressure would begin to warp and deform the heavy steel walls of the main tank, triggering every warning indicator in the substation.
It is a pretty stark reminder of the sheer physical forces at play just steps away from our sidewalks and roads. So, knowing the invisible physics inside, that continuous, vital cycle of heating, expanding, breathing, and contracting, will you ever look at a substation power transformer the same way again? The next time you walk past one of these humming steel giants, just remember the beautiful, hidden fluid dynamics keeping the lights on and keeping our grid safely running.
For more videos like these, follow our channel.